What's going on, everybody? It's Joel here, and today we're going to be doing the review of the Nike Metcon 6. Okay, so this is going to be one of the easiest reviews that I've done in a very long time. And don't take that as a bad thing, because I still think the Metcon 6s are one of the best training shoes to have come out in 2020. These shoes are excellent. I have been wearing these shoes pretty much non-stop for the last, 3 weeks since they came out. And I have to say that while they are some of the best training shoes that I have ever tried, they're not that different than the Metcon 5s from last year, which is not a bad thing. The Metcon 5s were an excellent training shoe. I didn't pick them for my top 5 training shoes because they got usurped at the very end of the year by the React Metcons, and I felt like if I had to only choose one Metcon from last year, it had to be the Reacts. I thought the Reacts, and I still think the Reacts are one of the best training shoes. That being said, the Metcon 6 is the complete package for a training shoe. They basically took the Metcon 5 and revamped it. The tooling is pretty much the same exact thing. That's how shoe lifestyle goals work. So this is based off the same platform as the Metcon 5, but there are some things that have changed as far as the upper goes. Some of the materials have changed, but all for the better. The one thing that some people might not like is the way that they look. There's a lot of things on the Metcon 6 that are a little bit polarizing, and it kind of lends itself to the over-designed trend of shoes, not necessarily training shoes, but just shoes in general. So let's take a look at the Matt Fraser Metcons, because you can really see the details of the shoe with this model. This shoe does look much better in real life than it does in pictures. In pictures, I wasn't really wowed, but in real life, it looks much better. It looks much better on feet too. And the reason why I think it looks better is because at every angle that you look at the Metcon 6 Matt Fraser model, it has a different look to it. There is 2 layers of the mesh upper. So there's a black layer on top, and then there's a red layer that's layered under it. So if you're looking at it at an angle, it looks more red. And then if you're looking at it from up top, it just looks more black. You can see through it, so you can see the drop-in midsole from inside. So that kind of gives it that red look. But otherwise, it's mainly a black upper. The iridescent blue, I think, is pretty cool. It's like the ice in Matt Fraser's veins, whatever. But I do think it's a cool shade of blue, and it is shiny at different angles. And then you have a huge red stripe down the side, which is indicative of Matt Fraser's like red line. They had it on last year's shoe. They brought it back for this year's shoe. I think the placement of it is a little bit better in this year's versus last year's. That was right down the middle, which is a little weird. On the Matt Fraser PE model, the back part of the shoe is leather, like the Metcon 4s was, like last year's was. That hasn't changed at all. The little zigzag stripe that everybody hates on the side of the Metcon 6 is blacked out on the Matt Fraser model. You do have the 4 circles for Matt Fraser's CrossFit Games victories on the back quarter panel of the shoe. The heel clip is a black chrome. Sometimes it looks shiny chrome, sometimes it just looks black. It just depends on the light that hits it. The outsole of the shoe is the same exact outsole from last year. There's absolutely nothing different about the outsole from last year. It does still have the Thanos chin, whale gill sides. On the Matt Fraser models, there is the Matt Fraser signature on the tongue. And then you still have that like same kind of mesh design where it's like red in some areas and then black in other areas. On the inside of the tongue, there's some more details, testing details, Matt Fraser signature. On this model, there is the swoosh on the side, which people complained about with the Metcon 5 because they didn't think the swooshes were visible enough. There's one on the back part and there's one like right on the top. The new mesh upper is supposed to be 18% more breathable than last year's model. I gotta be honest with you guys, I don't really notice that much of a difference between last year's and this year's, unless I have like air conditioner blowing on my feet. It's not that noticeable, and it's been like 100-something degrees out in California, and I still don't really notice that much. One thing that I will say I notice between the two shoes is that the upper of the Metcon 6 feels considerably less bulky. Like on the Metcon 5, it felt like the upper was padded right on the top of your toes. On the Metcon 6, it feels just a little bit more open, just a little bit more airy. Flexibility-wise, not that different. Comfort-wise, like I said, it just feels like there's a little bit less going on top of your toes with the Metcon 6. The new upper design on the Metcon 6 is called the haptic top coat, which is basically like PU overlays on top of the mesh material. And it extends all the way from the side part, the lateral side, all the way around kind of like the rim of the shoe. There's a more reinforced toe area, which is very prominent on the Metcons, which you can see kind of like the blue area right there. That's that haptic top coat. And then it extends into the medial side of the shoe for a little bit more protection against the rope. And of course, there's that zigzag that everybody hates on the leopard ones. It's pink here. And then there is a fly wire lacing system on the Metcon 6 that hasn't changed, but the little reinforcements that go around the lacing system have changed shape a little bit. I don't really think they changed the function all that much, but they have this kind of zigzag, crazy look to it, angular look that falls a little bit more in line with the zigzags on the side parts of the shoe. The quarter panel has been designed a little bit differently. Like on the Metcon 5, it kind of just sloped up, and on the Metcon 6, it's got a very prominent like line down the middle of the shoe, which I thought was a little weird in the very beginning when I first saw it, but as I started looking at the Metcon 6 a little bit more, it just kind of grew on me. The quarter panel of the Metcon 6 on the normal ones looks like it would be perforated, but it's not actually. It's just a solid kind of foam-ish material. And then there is the Metcon M logo on the back of the normal model Metcon 6. Now moving into the drop-in midsole of the Metcon 6, it's supposed to be the same exact drop-in midsole from the Metcon 5. If you look at the two different midsoles, the Metcon 5 has a orange heel and the Metcon 6 has a white heel. The front part of the drop-in midsole is still that same gray. The insert, the Hyperlift insert that comes with the Metcon 6 shoes is white on the Metcon 6 and it's orange on the Metcon 5. The durometer ratings that are on the top of the drop-in midsoles are a little bit different. They're a range on the Metcon 5, so it's 37 to 43 for the cushion side on the Metcon 5s, and then on the Metcon 6 it gives you a durometer rating of just 40. On the stable side on the Metcon 5s it's 54 to 60, and then on the Metcon 6 it's 51. So it's softer on the Metcon 6, but somebody had told me that it is the exact same drop-in midsole. Moving on to the weight of the Metcon 6, this is probably the best part of the shoe for me because everything's been so heavy this year. The Metcon 6 only weighs in at 12.6 ounces for men's size 10. The Metcons are 12.8 ounces, not a huge difference as far as weight goes. And going back to the drop-in midsole of the shoe, since it is the same quote-unquote drop-in midsole from the Metcon 5, it's still a 4mm drop. So sizing was a huge issue with the Metcon 5s. I didn't have any two pairs of Metcon 5s that fit the exact same. In the very beginning, I sized everything up half a size for it to fit. They just ran incredibly small for me and I had to wear a half size up. Later on in the year, I tried going back to the size 10. Some things fit. The Americana ones did not fit. Those were still small, but they had differences in material. But then I actually had bought these gray ones pretty early on this year, 2020, and these size 10s fit me perfectly. With the Metcon 6, normal size is the way to go. I got all of these in my normal size. The women's one are a size 11.5, so that's 1.5 sizes up from my normal size, which is the way that you're going to want to size it if you're going to want to pick up like a women's shoe. And the same thing goes with if you're a lady and you want to pick up a guy's shoe, you're going to want to go 1.5 sizes down from the men's size. These shoes fit true to size now. As far as the way that the shoe fits, I think the toe box is a little bit on the wide side. People always complain about Nike shoes being a little bit too narrow. Personally, I don't really see that. The midfoot of the shoe is somewhere in the middle. I don't want to say it's wide. It's not narrow. It's more on the neutral side. There's not really a whole lot of arch going on. So I actually really like that about this shoe. The heel is a little bit on the loose side. It does include the option to lace lock. So if you had any kind of issues with heel slip, then I would definitely recommend you just doing lace lock. Personally, I do get a little bit of heel slip, a little bit more heel slip on the Metcon shoe than the normal Metcon 6, but it's not enough to really bother me that much or to make me want to use the lace lock. If I really wanted to get rid of it, I would do it, but it doesn't really bother me that much. Like the Metcon 5s, the Metcon 6s are very, very comfortable and flexible. The Metcon 4s and the Metcon 3s were pretty stiff, pretty unforgiving shoes. They were very, very good lifting shoes. They just weren't very comfortable to do any kind of running in. Plyometrics were okay to do in them because they were pretty responsive shoes. They were pretty light shoes as well. The Metcon 5 and 6, very comfortable shoes. The midsole in these shoes it's soft, it's plush. The added like lightness, airiness of the Metcon 6 is definitely appreciated. Like I said, it's not a huge difference over the Metcon 5. I really like that the upper doesn't feel bulky on this shoe. Even though it was very flexible on the Metcon 5s, I don't really care too much for having that extra cushioning on top of my toes. Just don't really think it's all that necessary. The overall frame of the Metcon 6 is still very flexible, very comfortable. They're probably not the best running shoes if you're a heel striker because of the outriggers on the side for that lateral stability. It's a little clunky. Fortunately for me, I run with a midfoot/forefoot strike, so I actually really like running in my Metcon 6s. I think that these are one of the better training shoes to run in, especially the flexibility coupled with the forefoot cushioning makes these really comfortable for me personally, especially compared to like the Froning X Nanos, the Nano 10s, and the Nano 9s, which all for me were just terrible running shoes. Doing plyometric movements in the Metcon 6 is very comfortable, and the shoes are responsive enough, though, like I said, I do wish that that forefoot cushioning was just a little bit more responsive, like the React Metcons. And if you really wanted to, you could just get the React Metcon midsole and just put it into the Metcon 6. But as it is, I do think that that forefoot cushioning could just be a little bit more dense. Otherwise, they're still very comfortable shoes. The one thing I guess plyometric movement wise that I did not care too much for with the Metcon 6 is dumbbell box step overs. And I know that's a very niche movement, but doing any kind of movements like that, I just felt like that there was a little bit too much flexibility or play in the toe box for my foot to kind of move around while I was doing my pivots or like doing any kind of lunge movements. My feet would kind of start sliding around a little bit too much in the toe box of the shoe. Kind of niche movement, but only really applies to like any kind of unilateral lunge movement, like a dumbbell box step over, or even just like a weighted lunge. Burpees in the Metcon 6 are very comfortable. The toe box is very flexible, so going down is comfortable, getting up is very comfortable. I didn't notice the arches of my feet getting lit up from doing multiple bounding movements in the Metcon 6. They're overall a very comfortable shoe, but like I said, the forefoot cushioning could be a little bit more responsive, and the upper could support your foot just a little bit better. Historically, Metcons have always been some of the best, if not the best, training shoes to do your lifting in. The Metcon 5s took a slightly different approach by adding in some more comfort and flexibility to the shoe to make them a little bit more versatile for running and just wearing on the day-to-day, but I still thought that they were very good lifting shoes, but not quite the best. Definitely not Metcon 4 status. The Metcon 6s are not a whole lot different than the Metcon 5s. The midsole and platform of the shoe is the exact same thing, so you can't expect a whole lot of differences. While I don't think that they are the best training shoe to do your lifts in, I still think that they are a very good option and should suffice pretty much anybody that's planning on picking these up to do Olympic lifts, power lifts, and just general lifting in your normal global gym setting. The heel on these shoes is stable enough. It's pretty much on par with like the Metcon 4's overall drop-in midsole, but the forefoot of the shoe is kind of where you run into a little bit of a problem because it is a little bit more on the squishy side. The heel geometry on the shoe is excellent. I still think that that's one of the best part of the Metcon 5 and 6. The outriggers on the side definitely give you a boost in lateral stability when you're doing any kind of squatting movements. Even if you're deadlifting and you just hang back far onto your heel with these shoes, I still think that they're okay for powerlifting movements, though Metcons have historically never been my favorite deadlifting shoes just because I feel a little bit disconnected from the ground. I've always thought that Metcons were some of the best shoes to wear for Olympic weightlifting movements, especially if you didn't want to spring for a full-on pair of Olympic weightlifting shoes. Nowadays, that's even more so because they come with the Hyperlift insert, which admittedly I don't use all that much, but it would be a good option if you didn't want to buy 2 pairs of shoes because it gives you that extra heel boost. For the men's shoes, it does include an 8mm heel insert, which gives you an effective like half-inch heel, and then for the female shoes it comes with a 6mm one. Any way you go, these are still going to be fine Olympic weightlifting shoes. Jumping in them feels excellent. They're very responsive. Landing in them is rock solid, especially for a just normal training shoe. The grip on these shoes is excellent. That's probably one of the best features, and I've had absolutely no issues doing my Oli movements in these shoes. I actually PR'd my Power Clean Double in my Cheetahs. These ones kind of feel a little bit more stiff than the other 2 shoes that I own. So I usually will do all my lifting in the cheetah or leopard print shoes, whatever you want to call it. Metcon 6s retail for $130, which is the standard training shoe price. This is what they've always sold for. The special editions like the AMP models or the Metcons retail for $140. And I think if you are planning on buying a pair of training shoes in 2020, I still think that you should probably check out the React Metcons if you already own a pair of Metcon 5s. If not, then I definitely recommend the Metcon 6s. I still think that these are one of the best, if not the best, training shoes for the year. Earlier this year, I did say that the Nano 10s are the best training shoe / best CrossFit shoe, and that still holds true depending on the workout that you're doing. If I'm doing a heavy workout, I'm going for the Nano 10s, but I think for overall training, the normal day-to-day plyometrics, running, weightlifting, everything, all things considered, I would rather use the Metcon 6. It's just more livable, a little bit more comfortable to wear day-to-day. It's definitely more comfortable to run in for me. It's lighter, it's just a lot less bulky. When it comes to like styling, I think it could go either way. I personally think that the Nano 10 is a better looking shoe than the Metcon 6, but it just depends on what I'm wearing that day. Everything I say about the Metcon 6 versus the Nano 10 is pretty much the same story compared to the Froning X Nanos, which I think are very comfortable shoes, just a little bit too big, a little bit too clunky, definitely way too heavy. For those reasons alone, I find myself always grabbing my Metcon 6s. I've been wearing these pretty religiously for the last 3 weeks. I really, really like wearing these shoes, and I really like training in these shoes. That being said, if you are a huge Nike guy, you're a Metcon guy, and you wanted the latest and greatest, I definitely recommend that you check out the Metcon 6. I wholeheartedly recommend this shoe. It's an excellent training shoe, if not one of the best training shoes of 2020. I'm gonna continue wearing these shoes just because I find that they're just comfortable. They're comfortable, easy to wear training shoes. And for me, I kind of like the kind of like all over the place styling of them. It's a little weird, but I mean, these leopard ones, I mean, they really set it off. If you guys have any questions about the Metcon 6, feel free to leave them in the comments section. And as always, guys, please hit that like button, subscribe, and thanks for watching.